Hello and welcome. My name is Alia Jackson, and I am the president of 321 Insight. I had the chance to present to some of you at the conference in Phoenix a few weeks ago, and was very honored to be asked to present the material again for members who were not able to attend. The topic of this session is really looking at how to get ahead of challenging behavior by helping your staff create trauma-informed mindsets and skill sets to better address behavior and to help students thrive. Our agenda in this very quick webinar is looking at how to shift behavior mindsets for all staff and build trauma-informed skill sets through intentional leadership and then implement effective professional development. So let's get started. We're talking about mindset first and how important it is to shift mindset around behavior. A very easy way to get this conversation started, we've found, is by looking at this question. How would you compare the way we approach academic challenges with the way we approach behavior challenges? This is a question that can kickstart the conversation around behavior and our mindset around behavior. In our conversations with school district leaders and staff, we look at and talk about the way we look at academics. If a student makes a mistake, we call it a mistake. We assume it was an accidental error in an academic context. We believe that the student might have learned that skill incorrectly. So it wasn't necessarily that they didn't understand it, but maybe they weren't even taught it correctly. We diagnose that problem and we find a more effective approach. And we provide support or more practice to make sure that they can master that academic skill. And finally, we adjust the way we teach the skill instead of assuming the student will have to do that. But let's contrast that against the way we look at behavior. When a student makes a behavioral error or mistake, we often assume it's deliberate, not an error. We assume that the student can and will make a better choice the next time. We often provide a negative consequence, and sometimes we even remove the student from the environment. And we often take it personally. So if we approach behavior like we do academics, then we assume that the student needs to learn and practice the skill. We provide instruction instead of negative consequences. We provide opportunities for practice, and we adjust the way we teach. Now, we're not saying that you would never provide negative consequences. We're just saying, though, if our mindset around behavior is to first approach it like we do academics, we're going to have a much bigger runway to work with students and to help them gain the skills that they need. So let's look at, as we're talking about behavior, let's look at some of the current realities. We know that there's still impacts of COVID. I'm going to go through these pretty quickly because I know you're all aware. We know that there's staff shortages still. Everyone's still dealing with adversity, stress, mental health concerns, and we are still seeing a spike in challenging behavior. Not only the frequency, but the severity of challenging behavior, and we're seeing it in younger and younger grades. So the next thought question I want to ask is, what do you think the cause of this spike is? And there's not one cause, but we do know that the impacts of the past 3 years have had a tremendous effect. So we've got the COVID-19 pandemic, broad-ranging impacts. We know that stressful impacts in society are associated with increased rates of mental health and interpersonal violence and substance abuse. We know that trauma rates have spiked. This is part of a larger trend, though, because even before the pandemic, we were seeing an average of 2.5 weeks of instructional time lost due to behavior disruptions. We know that number has increased since the pandemic. So we're now going to move into 5 keys to getting ahead of this challenging behavior. And the first is intentional leadership. Can't stress this enough. Culture change doesn't just happen. It takes deliberate leadership. That can be school-wide leaders, that can be district leaders, that can be classroom leaders, but there has to be a deliberate measure and goal in place in order to shift the culture. We're seeing a lack of clarity and inconsistency in how to effectively prevent and manage behavior, specifically on the parts of teachers and paraeducators. That needs to come from instructional leadership as well, or educational leadership. And then we have to change the way schools feel in order to settle the behavioral spike. So this really is where we're talking now about the mindset shift and the skill building. So number 2 is developing that trauma-informed mindset amongst all of your staff. Why? It's because a trauma-informed mindset helps staff understand why students are reactive and why certain interventions don't work. We're going to look a little bit in a second about regulation, but if a student is dysregulated, no intervention will really be effective. And if we look at trauma-informed interventions as not knowing or needing to know who has had trauma or what the trauma is, instead we're looking universally supportive practices that help understand how the central nervous system operates. And if you come at it with that mindset, then you can really be effective at developing those behavior strategies. Most of you know this, I'm sure, so this is just a super quick reminder of adversity and how it impacts students' learning and behavior, as well as adults. So the 3 areas of ACEs, this came from the study in the 90s at Kaiser. This looked at household dysfunction, abuse, and neglect impacts, and that we saw that they are pretty pervasive. So in more than half of students had had enough trauma or adversity to impact their learning or behavior. We know that these impacts, they are wide-ranging: neurological development, attention problems, difficult trusting, high-risk behaviors. But these last 4 are really where we're seeing the behavior spike be impacted. So increased stress response, the fight or flight or freeze, the hypervigilance, the social misattribution, so assuming everyone is coming at it from a hostile perspective, and then low self-regulation skills. Quick review: regulation skills. Regulation is the ability to manage your thinking, emotional responses, attention, and physical reactions. This is where we're seeing the biggest impact of trauma and chronic stress and adversity on students and adults, is their ability to regulate themselves. A student who is dysregulated, they can't respond to consequences or back down from an argument. They can't learn a new skill. They can't engage in rational problem solving, and they can't work for an incentive while they are dysregulated. Now, the same holds for staff. Our adults can't do those things either. And in addition, they can't provide the signals of safety that kids with trauma need. They can't build safe relationships, and they can't develop trust. So we talked about mindset. It's important to get everyone into that mindset. Now let's talk about skills. Mindset alone is not enough. Your staff have to have a skill set, and all of your staff have to have a skill set. So this is about your custodians, your bus drivers, your counselors, your psychologists, your admin. Everyone needs a skill set to address challenging behavior right now. So the 3 main tenets of trauma-informed staff and environments are providing predictability, building strong relationships, and building and practicing regulation skills. The first one, predictability, it's so important, but our staff need to be structured and routine-oriented. Surprises are not good for kids who've had a lot of adversity. We need to be routine-oriented. We need to remind kids of that routine, and we need to maintain and keep to our structures. The limbic system learns through repetition, not cognition. So this means that we have to do things so many times that it becomes comfortable, safe, and basically like autopilot, right? So you have to learn, and that's how you build resilience, is by repeated positive experiences. Pre-teaching, front-loading, preparing kids ahead of time. These are things that are going to help the classroom feel predictable, help the school feel predictable, and help kids know what to expect. Visuals posted in the classrooms, in the school, and shared spaces, common areas, super important. Post them and follow them, and have developmentally diverse ways to present the information. And then have predictable ways of responding to issues in the classroom. Kids need to know what to expect. Building relationships, this is what allow you to have higher expectations of students, not the rules. We talk a lot about high expectations, and high support is what equals success with relationships. So we've got to be focused on building those relationships, and they rely on 3 components: presence, power, and warmth. That presence is, how are you using your nonverbals? How are you appearing to kids? How are you feeling around kids? Are you sending signals of warmth and safety? Power means, it doesn't mean that you're yielding your power. It means that you are showing you're in control. And that's so critical. And then the importance of nonverbal communication. As you know, so much of what we communicate is nonverbal, and kids, especially kids with a history of adversity and trauma, can perceive even neutral facial expressions as negative. They need more specific positive signals of warmth. Co-regulation and helping build regulation skills. This is critical. So this is something you don't do to somebody. This is something you do with kids. This is a shared process. And students who are dysregulated have difficulty calming down on their own. So this is where the presence of a regulated adult is critical in order for them to solve problems. Sorry about that. Now, only a well-regulated adult can help a student regulate. So if you are dysregulated yourself, it's not the time to go and help a student become regulated. I am so sorry about the ringing phone. This is an example of co-regulation that I'm not going to show in this video because we don't have a lot of time in this webinar, but 321 Insight, we put out videos like this that really demonstrated in action. So in this case, we show a skilled educator working with a student who is dysregulated. We show him then doing it in a way that's less effective. And then he analyzes why he was doing that. What was he aware of in his body language? What was he aware of with his breathing and his tone of voice and his rate of speech? This is great, a great example to share with staff so they can see what it actually looks like to co-regulate with somebody, because it's often not our intuitive response. We tend to jump to problem solving or reasoning, and this, you really see him sit with the student and try to establish a connection with him before he even addresses the behavior. So I'll share with you at the end how you can get access to these videos. The fourth area that we're looking at is managing staff stress. And the key focus areas for managing staff stress are looking at behavior. Behavior is the #1 stressor for school staff. They need solid and direct skills on how to handle and not handle certain types of behavior. They need to understand, and that gets again to the mindset piece as well. And then they need to know what to do about it. Clear expectations are a huge piece as well, right? They need to know what is expected of them, how they will be measured, especially when when they lack resources and have staff shortages. We really see this amongst our paraprofessionals, right? So people who don't always get a lot of training and don't necessarily have the experience that some of our other staff have, and they really need to, but they're on the front lines of that behavior. They really need that training and those expectations laid out clearly. And finally, this proactive support is so important. We have to provide training and ongoing professional learning for staff to develop skills. And this really ideally is ongoing. This is not just once in the beginning of the year. This is all throughout the year with access to ongoing materials and ways that they can continue their growth. And the fifth, again, back to that last point, is to plan professional development. Create your PD priorities for the year, the month, the week. Really, we know that it's quick, it's easy to get more important things that come up and you actually have to adjust. So have a plan in place so you can work from something. You're not scrambling to figure out PD at the last minute. And then select a variety of resources and methods of delivery. Think about job-specific PD, especially roles like classified staff roles. We know they don't get to participate in a ton of PD, and when they do, it really needs to be relevant and something that they can take right away and know how it fits with their role. So really look for ways. And then it might not always be in person. Maybe it's on demand. Maybe it's a virtual PLC. Maybe it's all of those things. So really just think about the variety there. And then build on that PD throughout the year. We work with school districts all the time to really think about what is the foundational information that needs to be taught in the beginning of the year, and then how do we build on that to ensure growth for the rest of the year and beyond. And then finally, think creatively, right? We're seeing school districts who are offering training, especially for their paraprofessionals, or on the weekends. They're doing summer academies. They're paying people to come. They're offering PD hours or equipment, et cetera, in order to get them in the room. We know, especially when it comes to paraprofessionals, they want the training. They want to feel like they know how to handle the behavior. They want to be effective with kids, and we want them to feel that way. And we want them to be good at their jobs and stick around. So we see our para training options fill up all the time. So very quickly, 321 Insight does offer on-demand professional development for all staff through ready-to-use brief videos, 3 to 13-minute videos. We also offer in-person and virtually facilitated professional development. So if you're interested, we have a free trial account available on our website. We also have free resources. I talked about that, the way we look at academic challenges versus behavior challenges at the front of this webinar. We have a great graphic that you can download on our website for free that really helps get that message across as well. Again, a great starting point for the mindset conversation. So I encourage you to look at our website. We have trial accounts of all of our on-demand PD. We have ebooks. We have other webinars you can watch, and we have lots of graphics and posters. So thank you for your time, and I hope to hear from you soon. Bye-bye.